We are on, Lynette, officially.
Officially.
Officially. Round two. How
That's
are
right.
you today? You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm great. I'm great.
I'm so excited to have this time with you. It was funny. Last night I was looking at your Instagram and you did a collective reading. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I laughed out loud because that first card that you pulled, you're like, we're all going through it.
Oh my gosh. That was funny because I got a bunch of cards that I didn't expect. When you're doing a reading for the collective and some of the cards are negative, you're like, okay, breathe. Figure it out.
So something that I have a lot of things that I'm excited to talk to you about today. One of the things I just want to say right off the bat is, as much as I love astrology, as much as I love tarot, and it's something that I have been drawn to for the better part of my life, there's really something extra special about you. There's a lot of astrologers and people who, have this, who do what you do essentially, right? But my best girl, Carrie, is the one who connected me with you. And I love her so much for it because you and I did a reading. We did a tarot reading and, pulled some amazing cards. And I just felt so uplifted after that moment, that hour with you, and it wasn't necessarily the cards. Those were great, but those were the bonus for me, Lynette. It was really you. It was your energy. And I just want to say that, I'm just really picky. I'm very connected and operate in a very profound, aligned, harmonized way with self, with source in my life. And I feel like one of my superpowers is reading people and just like vibing energy. And I just fucking love your energy. You are the real thing. And it's
Oh,
just,
thank you.
yeah. So I'm honored to have you here to just, I want to dive into everything. Can we start with how astrology became your life's work?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I had a reading. I was young. I was like 20, 21, and I was a young mom.
Mhm.
I was in kind of a challenging relationship, and my husband had actually met her, and he recommended I go have a reading with her, which I did. And it was just a basic reading. There wasn't anything that was significant about it now that I look back on it, because it was just basic and information, but it changed my life. And I was so intrigued by it. I had, excuse me, I had sort of lost religion a few years before that, and I was really seeking. And so I decided to do instruction with her. She was a Capricorn.
Mm.
So, yeah, so she ended up being my teacher, very strict, harsh teacher, but I learned a lot from her. So I studied under her for a couple of years. And that's how I got into it. And I really kind of put it aside for many years and then picked it up around my Chiron return, which wasn't until I was about 50.
Mm.
So big story in between. But it absolutely is magic. And I help people find their purpose. That's what I really use it for.
Mhm.
Even when I do cards like I did with you, it's really a spiritual quest. It's really about your energy, your own spiritual development. And that's how I approach everything.
I love
So,
that. Yeah. And that's because I mentioned to you that I almost didn't want to do it. And Carrie knows because I am a very autonomous woman and I just don't ever I want to be the ruler of my life. I don't want anything necessarily influencing because I am very sensitive. So if, for example, you planted the seed of like something, I don't know, that just didn't feel right, like it could stick in my mind, and I know that. So, but again, going back to my girl, because I trust her and I just know whoever she's vibing with, like I'm going to vibe with. And,
mhm.
when we did the reading, it's not like you were fortune telling, you know what I mean? It wasn't
I
like,
don't do that.
yeah, yeah. Can you actually explain really how you use the cards and what you're doing with the people that you're reading for? Because it was very unique and special.
Oh, thanks. Well, I see the way that people gather and like develop like dependence on people that do that kind of thing. And I don't really like dependence. I'm not interested really in being that person for other people. I'm really interested in helping people figure things out and then taking their own, reins and going with it. So I picked up tarot to really sort of hone my intuition skills. So I was using cards for myself, and then I started reading, and I noticed that I was super accurate. And so I've always sort of had this tendency to really just focus on a person's spiritual growth and where they're at and guidance from that place. It's just who I am. I can't really explain it any other way. I mean, I don't really cultivate dependence any place on my page or um, within my experience. So it's something that I've learned through my own personal growth, is to just not depend like you. I'm very much like you. I'm my own source. And so I don't like to create a dependence. I'm not interested really in that. It's really just about intention for me.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I felt that. I just felt held and lifted, but not, necessarily, go this way, go that way. And that really stood out to me. The other thing I really want to just express that I love so much about you is I love the way that you communicate. Your choice of words, the way that I love your collective readings, and what you share on Instagram, your captions, the way that you write. It just, for me, there's so much power in the words that you use. I'm a logophile, so I'm very picky about words, but like I can feel that you're really, when you say, like, I don't know a better way to describe it because it's just so naturally who you are. I genuinely feel that from you. There's no costume. You're literally pulling from this intuitive place. And let's talk about intuition. I think that, so one of the things that I talk about a lot is self-trust. I feel like it's the ultimate way to be living and operating from, right? When we can trust ourselves, no matter what, we can really make choices that are going to allow us to live from our fullest potential, which is not to say that means we're not going to face challenge or everything's easy. Quite the opposite. I think it means that we're going to position ourselves to be in some fucking hard shit sometimes, but we know how to recover. There's trust there. And I would love, part of the trust factor for me personally is, I have always been someone who has been able to, and later in my life, it's become even stronger, but to really listen against all odds, like against, what other people think, people that I love and I value, but there's something powerful inside of me where I lean into, I can't ignore her, and I bet on myself and I go. And that, there's intuition that I'm operating from that allows that. So I think a lot of people, don't really know how to trust their intuition, how to hear their intuition. I would love for you to speak on that.
Wow, that's a great question. Intuition, I think, is an extension of self-trust, because we all are intuitive. I mean, how many times do we get red flags that we don't pay attention to, or that we notice and we ignore them, right? Like, we all have that experience. And the way that you strengthen any kind of really self-knowledge is by tapping in and trusting yourself and trusting that inner guidance. So you've got to recognize it as inner guidance. When you get a red flag, that's inner guidance. The way that you empower your intuition is by paying attention to it and following it. That's what strengthens it. It's like a muscle. It's like anything else that you're going to train. So when you really trust yourself, because I get a question a lot. People are like, well, how do you know if it's your intuition or if it's your like ego? And that's a great question. So you always notice that the intuition is something that is an impulse. It's something that sort of bubbles up that you're not trying to control. A lot of times the ego will come right in after it as a fear and say, but what if, right? Like, because we want to challenge. That ego wants to challenge the true nature of who we really are, that real innate being, that essence. The energy that we're in is really pulling all of us more into authenticity. So authenticity and intuition go together, because we are intuitive beings. It's another sense that's beyond the 3D, physical senses. So when you have a sense of self-trust and especially a sense of self-love, you're more in touch with that because when you love yourself, you're willing to trust yourself because you can see that you've never really made mistakes. You can forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. You can foresee all the red flags that you've missed and how it affected your life. And so you become more responsible, I think. Did that answer your question?
Oh, it totally did. And it took us right to another area that I am so excited to talk about with you because self-love is the area, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that I have this 5S formula, which is really a formula that because I'm an empowerment coach. I talk about empowering yourself to be able to live from your fullest self in life, right? Like to make these powerful choices, you have to feel very empowered to do so. So I have this formula that essentially it's just me going in, well, how did you get here, right? And so the formula is in sequential order. You need self-awareness. Then next is self-connection. Next is self-love. Next is self-confidence. And then the crown jewel is self-trust. But love is the precursor to self-confidence. And I know this in my own life because I would never position myself to do the hard things that fortify self-confidence if I did not love myself enough and even love what was on the other side of the challenge to move my forward. So it's really what I call self-love is the queen nettle. And paying attention to, I have chills right now because replaying things that you've written in your posts and things that you've communicated around the subject of self. And I don't think I've ever heard any speak to it in a way that resonates with me so just harmoniously. So I would love to just go down a rabbit hole with you around self-love. How to grasp this concept, how do you move through your life with self-love? Anywhere you want to go with it. Let's go.
Okay. Well, I love this topic. It's what I teach. And I've been able to blend it in with the astrology and other things that I do because it's so central. It's just such an important spiritual component. And I came into self-love and understanding about it in the same way that we all do, is through our own self-knowledge and our own self-understanding, because we've lacked a certain thing that we've been able to connect with. So I spent the most of my life not being in self-love. I had a horrible self-esteem. In fact, I was one of those people that used to ask, well, how do you get self-esteem? Like I was genuinely curious, like, how does a person get self-esteem? Like I didn't understand that, how some people were confident and yet I wasn't. And so I actually started following Matt Kahn. Matt Kahn was a spiritual teacher who really sort of opened that book for me. And I have to really credit him for really laying the foundation and the basics around it. But when I started, I had sort of a spiritual awakening that happened. And I had always been really spiritual, but I had sort of had this awakening around the time that I was 50. And I was actually going through my Chiron return. I wasn't an astrologer yet. I wasn't doing any of the things. I'd been divorced. I was in a narcissistic relationship. I was at a pretty low point in my life. And I started implementing some of the basics of self-love. And I started actively working in a somatic way with my feelings and with my inner child, especially. And I just started meeting myself where I was at. I was really depressed. I was super anxious. And I did really, really had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't hold a job. I had to figure out my life. I moved in with my daughter to help with my granddaughter. Like I was a mess. And I pulled myself out of this pit through self-love. I just started healing. And of all the other things that I had done, any kind of spiritual healing or workshops or anything else that I had done, self-love was the thing that had been the missing piece for me. And so when I really started cultivating a relationship with myself and a relationship with my inner child, I started feeling stronger. And I added things to it. Like you did, I had certain steps that I added to it. And I shifted into, when I started feeling better and I started feeling like I could see the light, I shifted into gratitude, which made a huge difference. like being grateful because gratitude brings you into the moment. You can't be in a state of self-loathing if you're in gratitude. And I noticed that it really shifted my mood. It shifted my energy, and it kept me in the now moment. And it let me see all of the things that I did have available to me. And then I added celebration of self. And that was where I really connected with self-confidence. So it sounds like we sort of like had the same steps.
Yeah.
But just in, just wording it differently, maybe. But celebrating the self is one of those things that a lot of times when I work with people in a self-love process, they miss that. Like they'll love themselves, and you almost have to do all of it in order to capture the full benefits of it.
Sure.
The celebration of self is such a beautiful energy because we forget to do that. We're always achieving and going on to the next thing. And we very rarely really take time to acknowledge who we are. And so self-validation, personal validation, I think is at the core of self-love. And we seek it so much in our relationships, and we become so codependent on caring about what other people think and how they think about us and the experiences that we've had and their acceptance and approval. And it leaves us empty. And so I found that personal validation is really the core tenet, I think, of self-love, because I'm sort of I don't know, you would call me. I'm an energy. I'm a spiritual strategist. So I really focus on energy. And when you're validating yourself on a really deep level, it allows things to flow to you, because self-love is an energy of receiving. It's an energy of receiving your own love. And so when you receive your own love and you're in an active state of doing that, you're already in a feminine expression. You're always receiving. So you're receiving other love, you're receiving other people's love. It helps you to navigate your life so that you can set boundaries and so that you can see those things more clearly, so that you can tap into the energy within you that says, hey, this is a barrier, this is a boundary, and that you can speak up. I mean, I'm simplifying it.
No, yeah, it's so good though. I mean, there's so many pieces to pull on there. Self-validation, the boundary piece as well. I mean, that's huge. Yeah, if you don't really hold true love for yourself, you're not going to be able to stand up for yourself and know how to create boundaries to keep yourself in alignment, to protect yourself. I love that so much. And another thing that to mention about self-love, I think because we hear it, so we were actually hearing this more these days, right? But yeah. I think sometimes the way it could be communicated is almost like this, soft. It's just like this, I don't know, like to me, self-love is fucking gangster. It's badass. And right. And to really validate that statement, it's like, here's the proof, because we know that true self-love is actually not common. It's not common for a reason, because it's fucking hard.
It is hard.
Right. And so that's why I feel that when you are really operating with self-love in your life, like that's some gangster shit. It's like,
you're absolutely right. I mean, it takes courage, I think. And I think the thing that the kernel that most people miss is that, one, they think that self-care is self-love, and those are two different things. Okay. So you don't want to confuse those things, because I've met a lot of people that are in a lot of just amazing kinds of self-care, but they're really lacking that experience, that relationship with themselves. And it's something that's the reason why I teach it, because I think that people miss this part. And the real kernel of it is forgiveness for yourself, really loving. Self-love is a navigation tool. So the thing that I think a lot of people seek is that they think that if they're going to love themselves, that everything's going to be roses, that they're never going to feel self-doubt and they're never going to feel fear. And that just isn't the truth. We use self-love to navigate our way through life, through those kinds of things. But I think the thing that most people miss is that they kind of reject, or they're afraid a little bit to go into this real deep relationship with themselves, where they're just willing to love the part of them that is struggling. The
Yeah.
part of them that is afraid, the part of them that has fears and doubts. And you don't need to know why there's a thing that's happening in your life and in your experience and why you're fearful. All you've got to do is show up for that part of you that's in fear. And you don't have to understand it. You just have to be there to feel into the part of you that's fearful. Because in a way, self-love is soul retrieval. So it pulls all these energies back into the core of unconditional love for yourself and forgiveness. And that doesn't mean that you do bad things. It means that you take accountability. It means that you can forgive yourself and say, look, okay, I really screwed up in that situation. I know that I can do better. But loving yourself through a process like that allows you to do better next time. It allows you to forgive yourself so that you're not hung up on the trying to keep yourself closed off from your actual experience that you're having. I find that most people have a dual experience. There's the experience they're having internally, and then there's the experience that they talk about and that they show to other people. Those are two different lives a lot of times.
So true. And I love that you really are an advocate for owning all of your emotions, for allowing these emotions to move through you and to not resist, because we know that energy, you can't make it go away. You have to transmute it, right? So
Yep.
I know in my own life, self-compassion is pretty much one of the most badass tools that I operate with. And it really allows, I'm a path creator. It's hard, right? Because it's all unique. It's all coming from my intuitive self, from my passion, my purpose, my vision. I'm laying out the roadmap, right? And there's a lot of challenge because I'm reaching for greatness in my life every single day, right? That's the process more than even the goals, right? But I want to achieve the goals too. And there are times that I feel, fear, self-doubt. I mean, I'm a very confident woman, but that doesn't mean that stuff doesn't come in. It is always attacking, right? But one of the things, and this is just to really validate and appreciate what you just shared and that you talk about frequently actually, is that, hand on heart, and literally I'll say to myself out loud, I understand. This makes sense. I know it's hard, but we can do this. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
And this allowing myself to feel the feelings, and at the same time feeling myself, supporting myself to get through it, is literally what allows me to move past it and to really rise from it. So I love, again, like, you have a very unique approach, your wisdom and what you communicate, because I mean, it just hits home. It hits home to me because, Lynette, it literally is what is supporting me to move through my life. And when you talk about, we don't take that much time to self-celebrate. That's another home run for me, because every night when I go to bed, I truly, like, this is, I only speak truth. I've got nothing to hide. I literally, hand on heart. And I say to myself, I love you. And I am so proud of you. And it's just honoring myself. It doesn't mean that, I can't do better, or there aren't things maybe where I came up short. It's just really being in a really loving relationship with myself, and knowing that, being on my team is really what is going to not just help me to get to the things I want to get to or receive, but to fucking feel good in the process, right? Because the process is really, that's where I'm most, it's the most provocative piece to me. It's the process.
Totally. Well, I think that self-love, the reason why it's so effective to navigate is because, like you and any other self-sourced individual, any other creator out there, you're always expanding, you're always growing. And so when you're always growing, you're always going to bump up against your edges, right? You're always going to bump up against something you haven't done yet, and something that is going to scare you. And this is why you don't want to have the assumption that doubt and fear means anything. We a lot of times see those things as warnings. you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. Or, self-doubt a lot of times is an indicator people think of that they should be cautious or that they should maybe pull back. Self-doubt isn't the evidence of anything. Self-doubt is just the evidence of self-doubt. It's just showing you what's in the way. Mm. So when you just show up in love with yourself, for yourself in that very moment, you're always going to meet your edges. You're always going to be in expansion. You're always going to be practicing self-love. That's why it's not something that you just do for 3 months and you put it down. Mm. This is a practice. This is a lifestyle. It's a way of being with yourself. And it's a way of partnering with yourself. I find that a lot of people on this journey, for whatever reason, are isolated. They're in solitary union with themselves. They're not necessarily with a partnership. That's not true for everyone. Mm-hmm. But I find that it's fairly true for the people that I work with. They've left relationships that don't serve them and that they've moved on from that. And they spend a period of time in singleness. And that can be a difficult road if you're not practicing self-love. It can be very lonely and very isolating. And, being able to be in a self-love relationship with yourself and to be okay being alone, to be happy, to be content, to be spiritually sovereign is such a powerful thing. Not only is that going to attract a true partner to you eventually, if that's what you desire, but it makes the road so much easier to travel, when you're partnering with yourself. And, so often we seek outside of ourselves for that component, that person to validate us and to make us valued and worthy. But if we're doing that, it doesn't mean that we can't be in relationship with another person. It only can amplify our ability to be in relationship with someone else.
I so agree. I call it insourcing. And it's interesting because I never frame myself as, I'm never alone. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm not ever by myself. I'm with myself. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a play on words, but words are an experience to me. They're energetic. And to be honest, it's the truth because I really am not alone. I'm with my being. And I know you've talked about that before. That everybody does really have this higher self. I have a relationship with my future self. She's my highest self. She is my muse. And we connect every day in meditation, but really I operate my whole day with her. And, I'd love for you to speak on that too, because I do feel that when we can really connect with this higher self and maybe, I think for me, having this relationship with my future self has helped me to really almost create like this separate entity that's within, it's me, it's all me, right? But having that somewhat bit of separation as Roxy in the future has really helped to fortify this relationship to where it is an absolute partnership that I'm moving through my life with. So I never feel alone. And because I'm just not. So I would love for you to speak on that because I think that's a very powerful, it's a very powerful thing to realize. And I love the way that you speak about it.
Well, this was one of the most painful things for me to understand and learn because I was really codependent. I had been really wounded and traumatized in ways that I didn't even understand from childhood, things that I only through my self-love practice had I been able to really connect with. So I discovered I had a lot of trauma in my infancy, which when I really connected with that kind of energy, it was very painful. Part of my self-love process, it doubled me over when I was able to connect with that real wounded part of me. But as I worked through the components of self-love, I realized that I'd always been seeking for that validation outside of myself. And I was so disconnected because really, I think what you're speaking of is just another form of spiritual sovereignty where self-love helps you to open up energetically. And when we open up energetically and we're not afraid to love and we're willing to take care of our hearts open up and we're available for more spiritual involvement, more spiritual connection so that we can access these parts of us. And the future self or the higher self isn't any different than the wounded self. It's all an entity within you. And really, they're just different facets of your being that you're connecting with. And so to me, it's all sacred, the wounded infant for me that I tuck into my heart that nobody ever really gets to access, is just as valid and is just as present as anything that I work with in a more ethereal realm. It's all the same being. It's just a different face of the same experience. And so when I really do the work and I realize that all of these facets of me are me, that I'm in a concentrated form of consciousness and I'm just here doing the thing, it takes work. I mean, that sort of energy, it comes to you after practice and after doing the work and opening yourself up energetically and really allowing yourself to be who you are, because everything relaxes. When you're in deep self-validation, everything relaxes. And so you're available for more. And this is where, again, when we come back to the intuition, it's the same thing. You're receiving guidance from a different place because you're open. You're not closed off. You're not holding it in. You're not clenching and constricting, right? You're open because you're open to yourself. It's a practice. It's a process. It's something that I believe everybody deserves to really know, to understand, to practice, to have support with. That's why I talk about it so much, because you and I know that it's an embodiment, right? It needs to be a somatic experience. It's got to be a feeling. You want to connect to the feeling. You don't want to push the feeling away. This is how we end up living like dual lives, where we feel one way and then we do something else. And we're always trying to protect that feeling state. And it's actually okay to let yourself feel the things that you fucking feel. Because it's there.
Right.
It's there. And why, like eventually when you do this long enough, you're like, you don't do that anymore. You don't hide those things from yourself because you know the damage that it does. And it closes you off from other people, and it closes you off from your own experience and from your own blessings and from your own truth, because it is your truth.
Yes.
So when a feeling is uncomfortable and you move into that with understanding and patience and love and compassion, that feeling dissolves. You integrate yourself in that moment. You integrate these parts of you that then become more whole. You become more whole in that moment. And then you get to a place, where you're so embodied that you just move with grace through every experience in your life, even when you're struggling.
So good. It's like, it hits my heart because I love everything you just said. It's interesting. So one thing I want to add to it, and I'm curious to how you vibe with this, but there's always, in my own experience, I've learned that there's always this next level with it too. So a real life example would be that in the last almost 2 months, I have many different modalities of training. Yoga has been a part of my life for forever. But in the almost the last 2 months, I have been doing this, my own yoga flow every morning with consistency. So my day to day it's yin in the morning, yang through the day, and then yin in the evening, right? So I have these very nourishing the self-care, all that loving kind of energy at the top where I can go in, and at the bottom. And then during the day, it's full fire. We got to fucking make shit happen kind of thing, right? But in the last 2 months, and in our reading together, we talked about, you said to me, there was this, you pulled self-actualization, a card, and you talked about like, I'm reaching kind of another level with my own spiritual self. I have been doing this yoga flow and I'm channeling through it. I do it in front of the mirror, and words come out of me, moments come out of me, experiences. And there are moments where I'm like, tears come, not like I'm crying, but like tears, because I like these statements of just let go, stop judging, love yourself. You can do this, and all, affirmations, but like, it's literally like coming to me as I'm in movement in this flow. And when I am done and I let myself feel everything, I am exactly what you just said. This is why it really touched me. I am so whole. And that is how I'm starting my day. And this practice has just come, like this, fluid, consistent practice has just come in the last 2 months. So, how long will this, I don't know. And it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is that I'm really saying is like, there's always going to be, when you are really in this is a lifestyle, like you said, you embody this. It's so inspiring and so rewarding that there's always going to be like this new thing or new way or new development that will support you
Totally.
to take you to the next level. And I'm living this right now. And so everything you just said is like, oh my God. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
No.
Please. No, finish.
Well, I was going to say, it really bridges me to something else that I really want to speak to you about, but I don't, if you had something to say.
No, please go ahead.
Well, thinking about the yin and the yang and the yin. So that's ultimately feminine, masculine energy, feminine, masculine, feminine. And one thing that I can tell you with so much truth and confidence is that, when I've pulled out and really watched who I am and how I function in my life, there really is this harmonious relationship between my masculine and feminine energy, and in the sense of like how I exist and also how I operate in my life, and I've never done, I haven't taken deep dives into reading about masculine, feminine. It's just a knowing and a being. And, now it's kind of more, you hear it more. And so I've picked up on the way that, people talk about divine feminine, but I truly I haven't researched in those areas. It's just really natural to me. But I know you speak to this even as a collective, like how people are functioning in their masculine and feminine energy. And I would just love to go down a rabbit hole there with you.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because we all have, and this is something that astrologically we see that, right? We all have Mars in our chart. We all have Venus. We all have this polarity within us. We have a lot of different polarities within us. We live in duality. That's why we're here on the planet. So understanding masculine and feminine energy is really important to come into wholeness with yourself, because the masculine, especially for me, how I discovered the masculine within me and how I was misusing the masculine was because I was protecting, I was defensive, I was closed off, I was walled off. I wasn't allowing the affection for myself or other people, like and I was a single mom raising 4 daughters for a really long time. And I've been single for a long time. So I've had to take care of myself. I've had to provide and protect myself and all those things. I've had to go out and hustle. And so it isn't about gender. It's really about the energy and how you're using it. And what I found out was that when I was building my business, and I was using the momentum that I was gathering from what my self-love practice had brought me, the abundance that it had actually brought me, because it brought me into alignment with myself, which when you come into alignment with yourself, your purpose is always going to reveal itself. And so when I started moving in that direction and really bumping up against my edges around money, mm-hmm. and security, and feeling like I could take care of myself in a different way, in this new way where I wasn't letting someone else pay me for a job or something like that. This is when I really understood about it, because I realized that it was also the thing that was keeping me from relationships. Mm. And I'm straight, I'm hetero. And so I was, attracted to men. And I recognized that the way that I was using masculine energy was pushing relationships out of my life, because I'd been in this masculine energy for so long of always doing for myself. I didn't ever allow a partner to do things for me, or to give to me, or to provide or protect me. I always saw myself as this fierce, independent woman. Yes. Right. And that's really rampant right now in our society, this real strong, feminine, but masculine woman. And it's a distortion. It is. And this is where a lot of women, I think, get really tripped up, is because they don't want to be seen as submissive. They're sort of seeing it as an either this or that. And it's not the masculine energy that you speak about, even in your own life, is your ability to go out there and to get it done, right? And to do that whole experience in the middle of your day where you're just meeting people and you're grinding it out.
Yep.
And then you have the yin experiences at the beginning and the end, and that's the feminine energy where you're receiving. Now, the energy that we're in right now is very feminine. It's been feminine for about 6 years. And so this real masculine feminine energy that women tend to have isn't going to work eventually. It's not going to work for their relationships. It might work for their goals, but eventually they're going to hit a wall with it because the universe demands balance.
Yeah.
So this is why self-love is so important, because self-love is such a feminine energy that it's I don't want to say it's all you need to do, but it almost is all you need to do. Because when you're supporting yourself, you can activate the masculine energy. When you're the cheerleader for your own life,
yes,
you can move into more action-oriented stuff. You can set boundaries. You can create structures. That's all masculine energy. So the feminine is through the receiving and the allowance. And I think a lot of women really struggle with this because I think women have bought the idea that women are weak and that we're perceived weak, that being that energy is weak because for some reason the patriarchy's distorted that. And so we've taken it on rather than embracing the feminine qualities. And so, yeah.
Oh man, you are like hitting it out of the park. I mean, because this is something that I feel often because I witness this and I really do agree with you. It's interesting, right? Because first of all, I think it takes more strength and courage to allow, right?
Yes.
Because you're not trying to control, you're not gripping. And the allowing is the feminine energy.
It is,
so really, it's like, let's not confuse feminine energy as soft and submissive and not powerful. In fact, I don't want to say one dominates over the other because I really do believe in the harmony of both. But I mean, I think the feminine energy is really like when you are really in it and you're not confusing and trying to over control, like when you're really in that mode of allowing and receiving and loving, I feel like that is the ultimate, like you're omnipotent at that point, right? And so you don't have to, you know, it's funny, I'm straight too. And my mom's amazing, by the way, like 5 cesarean kids, like single mom, like she's hardcore. She's a legend. She always, one of the things I love so much that she really instilled in my mind from a young age is like, let a man be a man. And as strong as I am, I have 3 brothers and a sister, and I grew up, my brothers were very close in age, and we're all, I do let a man be a man. And, I know in today's society, this language and this talk get really, and that stuff bores me, to be honest. But you know what I'm saying in the sense of like, yeah, I can hold in my strength and my feminine energy and not have to if the man wants to open the door for me, by all means, I want you to open the door for me. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I know I'm capable, but because I know I'm capable, I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to grip. I'm going to allow this energy to come in and like let my inner goddess appreciate it.
Well, it's, when you pull in, I mean, here we're talking about energetics again, right? Because a woman who's strongly in her masculine is going to repel a masculine man. This is a lot of times why really strong women will attract men who are not that. And if they are that, they're going to butt heads. That's going to be a problem because men in their masculine, men are not as intuitive as we are. They're not as aware in some ways as we are. And so they don't know why, but it's not a match for them because they don't want to be in a relationship with a man. They want to be in a relationship with a woman. A woman, the feminine energy allows the man to soften because she's holding soft energy. It's a very, like you say, the concept of it and the conversations around it, I feel the same. They're sort of boring to me because people have the feelings they have until they don't feel that way anymore, until they have another understanding. But this is, I found I had to balance my feminine energy more. The allowance, the receiving, being able to receive. And this is why, even again, the self-love practice and the celebration of myself, the receiving myself, giving myself the pep talks. Boundaries was another way that I wasn't using my masculine energy in a healthy way. So I had to learn how to set boundaries and to create structures for the things like you do in your life that are these are things that you do. These are structures that you have for self-care or whatever. That's a structured energy, is masculine energy. So we all have these components. It's a matter of kind of doing a deep study in your own life about how you're personally using that energy. And
Yes.
to me, the feminine energy is the godly energy. She's the creative energy. The masculine comes in and puts structures around that creation and then makes something solid out of it. But it's the feminine that all the energy of the innovations and the ideas really flow, because the feminine is always connected to that source of creation, because we literally create in our body. Yeah.
It's so perfect.
It is. And so it's really just a matter of softening into not having certain ideas or agendas about any of this, and finding where your own flow is and looking and examining your own life. Where am I in too much masculine energy? Where am I giving too much of myself and my power away? Where is my feminine leaking? Where are my leaky boundaries? That kind of thing.
So good. That's so good, Lynette. Oh my gosh. Okay. So another, kind of juicy subject I'd love to tap in with you on is shadow work, because I feel like it's a buzzword. You talked about the inner child earlier in the conversation, and I would just love for you to speak on both of those, because you have, again, powerful words and wisdom in these areas. And I think now more than ever, I think it's really important for people to really, first of all, understand what this is about, and then in that understanding, recognize how it's being, active in their own lives, and how to stay within balance and harmony with these, with your shadow work and your inner child.
Yeah. These are really big buzzwords, aren't they? And that's okay. I mean, I love that people are so conscious and that they're waking up, and it's okay that it's trendy and stuff like that. But really, to me, shadow work is just anything that you're rejecting about yourself. It's just an energy that you don't fully accept and acknowledge, and that you are willing to delve deeper into and figure out what it's about. So one of the things for any astrology, people out there, the moon sign is really an aspect of your shadow. If you really sort of want to know a little bit more about yourself, look at your moon sign, because your moon sign is really going to reveal the shadow aspects of your personality. That can really help you to sort of see, okay, what are the more negative aspects, or what we call the shadow aspects of the moon, and sort of move in from that place. For me, that was a portal for me to enter my own shadow. And when you identify the shadow, it's easier to identify it without needing to go through the moon or through another concept like that. But for me, I was really defensive. I have an Aries moon. So I had this, because the moon is a very subjective energy. It's subconscious. It's reactive. It's something that you're going to respond from a place that's coming from the subconscious. You're not conscious about it. You're just in a reactive state with it. And this is why the moon can be helpful. So I was very reactive. I would be explosive. I would be impatient. These were things about me that were really hard to rein in, because it was such a triggered response.
Yeah.
And so when I understood that because what happens is, when you have the shadow and you recognize, okay, I've got these faults, I've got these flaws. Normally what we do is we beat ourselves up just indefinitely for those things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I understand this. I can't change it. I've tried to change it. It keeps coming up. I keep doing the same things over and over again. I can't seem to shift this pattern. That's because you're not acknowledging it. You're not loving that part of yourself. You're pushing it away, which anything you push away, you amplify, right? You make it bigger.
Yeah.
So it becomes more of a thing. So I could not push that part of me away. I had to learn to love the aspects of me that were impatient, that were acting out, that were lashing out. I had to dig a little deeper underneath that response. And it was really hard to do. I had to really use my focus to really, because it was hard for me to catch myself before the reaction. Because for me, my Aries moon was so reactionary. I mean, it was just like a spark, right? So I had a hard time catching myself before I would respond or react. So I just started loving those parts of me. In like when I would revisit a situation that I felt regret or remorse about, I just started loving the parts of me that had overreacted and that had acted impatiently and irrationally to things. And I took responsibility for it. You know, I apologized to people that I needed to. I started loving that part of me that I wanted to push away, the part of me that I wanted to change, but I didn't really want to do the work. I just wanted it to go away. And so when I started loving those parts of myself, then I was able to access the more light energies of my Aries moon, which was playfulness, which was courage, which was determination, which was independence, right? Which was the warrior in me, because the warrior in me was the one that kept reacting. So once I started acknowledging the ways that I was the warrior in my own life, the way that I was taking on my life and that I was getting things done and I was achieving things that I never thought I'd be able to achieve. Once I started validating that, then the shadow I was able to calm that part of myself because I wasn't pushing it out of my experience.
Yeah.
And that's to me what shadow work is. It is loving the parts of yourself that you want to disown. The things that you really don't want to accept about yourself. So we keep pushing them away, and energetically, it's only going to get bigger. And
yeah, it sounds like you bring for sure, because I do believe that is so true. You know, whatever you're, investing your focus and you're trying to, you're giving energy to it, and so it's going to expand, right? It feels from what you just said that, in that, in your loving of those parts of you, you're harmonizing yourself, right? Because it's like you're not saying go away, I don't acknowledge you, or even that you don't have value. I'm sure, I mean, listen, that spice, I'm sure it does a lot for you in some moments when you need that. And then that's a powerful fucking tool like, to be able to crack the whip or whatever. But it's saying, like, I see you, I honor you, you're here for a reason. But let's work together. Right. I love that.
One of the things that I love about astrology, and because I work in that polarity all the time with people, right? And so you notice how I had the shadowy aspects of that Aries moon. I balanced it by accentuating the things that were awesome about that Aries moon, because all of the signs, all of the planets, all of those energies have a polarity. They have a choice. This is how I operate with astrology. You're always at choice. You can see that there's a way that you're using this energy, but there's also this way that you can use this energy. And so when you give people choices, they don't feel so confined in their life. They can see that, yes, I've got this Aries moon, which is my badass, right? It is my energy that allows me to be single and allows me to have my own business and allows me to get out there and conquer my fears and to travel by myself and to live my life, because I am independent at the moment. And so otherwise I would have remained small and tight and closed off and bitter and angry, which was definitely a choice that I could have made and that I was making. So it's really about the consciousness just of waking up. And I have a Virgo sun and an Aries moon. These two women don't like each other. Like my Virgo was the one that was so like harsh and critical of that part of me. I had to really get myself under control, and it took me a while to do that. It really did. It was my path. But this is what I find about people that I work with. I tend to draw a lot of healers and guides and mentors and people like you to what I do, because we have our own experience and then we go on to teach it. Right? We go on to teach what we've learned about our experience, what we've known, just like you and I are both doing.
Yeah.
So how can you beat up something about yourself that's brought you so much joy and so much happiness and so much abundance and so much information and knowledge and wisdom.
Yes.
I mean, it's all just beautiful. You want to just bless all of it. So you don't want to leave any tidbit of yourself out in the cold. Like, bring in that tattered warrior who just wants to fight and be defensive and fight for your rights and be heard, all that stuff. You've just got to show up for yourself, and all of that energy will just integrate right into your experience. That's what we call embodiment. That's what I call embodiment.
I love it. I feel it. I'm with it. I'm with you all the way. Would you speak on the inner child? Because we spoke about this before, and I loved so much about how you're just your frameworks around this, and like the inner child poking at you. And if you're not giving it that attention, it's going to keep getting louder. And I think that this is so cool, because a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of something like this. But I'm such a visual person, so I actually like visualize this. Hey, pay attention to me, this little girl.
Yeah, me too. I'm very visual as well. And when I really started doing this work, what I found is that what I do, the way that I work is that I pay attention to the emotion that I'm having. So it's somatic in that sense, right? It's a feeling in my body. I go into the feeling, and I connect with the feeling, because the feeling, whether it's fear or doubt, or whether it's trying to push something away, I can understand why that part of me is doing that, right? I can feel into the energy of why there's a fear there, why there's scarcity or lack.
Yeah.
And what I noticed as I was doing this work is that I would visualize as well. And as I moved into the feeling to become more intimate with the feeling, the energy would present itself as a child, as my inner child, at a different age or a different experience in life where maybe the energy got stuck. So I also have a background in hypnosis. So this has probably helped me a little bit to understand this, because I had done a lot of hypnosis and had done a lot of work with myself, and I had met myself at different ages and in different lifetimes even. So I could have this visualization. So I noticed when these emotions that I was feeling that would just come up randomly, sometimes were connected to my adolescence, my young childhood, my infancy. The ones that were more difficult to access, that took me longer and that required a lot of trust, were things that happened for me pre-verbally, right? Things that I couldn't articulate.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like peeling back the layers of an onion. I was able to connect with things that were safer. And then as I went deeper into, my vulnerabilities. But I would always meet myself at different ages. So I was able to just let that be what it was, because I had certain traumas. Like, a lot of times we have traumas around peer groups, not being accepted by our friends, and people that talk about us, people that bully us. And it isn't just about the inner child. Sometimes we go into these energies of real lack and fear of what other people think of us. And that can occur in teenagehood, and in our adolescence. So you want to be willing to meet yourself at whatever age you are. And to me, the aspect of being able to visualize my inner child at different ages and in different experiences that I remember, or that I can connect to, was really central to the self-love practice. It's hard to explain to other people because it's something that only you can do within. I can't facilitate that necessarily for you.
Yeah.
But it took time to and this is where you cultivate a relationship with yourself, and you just start where you are.
Yeah.
Because it is going to be like peeling back the onion and getting to the core of just being able to really connect with a deeper essence, And when I was able to connect even with my trauma in infancy, that was something that I was unaware of. This was something that my spirit guided me to, that said, hey, there's energy here. And there was no one alive anymore that could validate that experience for me. I had to validate that experience for me on my own. And so when I did the real inner infant work, that was probably the most difficult, because it was extremely painful. It was so tender that I had to take some time to really get there, to feel safe enough to reveal that part of myself to me.
Mhm.
But I am very visual too. So when I work with the inner child, like when I uncovered my infant, I just scooped her up in my arms. I opened up my heart. I put her right in there. She stays in there. Like that is where she is.
Yeah.
So I do these really creative things with my children. And sometimes I read to them and sometimes I let them sleep with me in bed. And
Mhm.
I just do the work. I mean, I think that it's okay to allow yourself to do this work in whatever way suits you. Not everybody is visual,
Right.
so you want to feel the most important thing is that you want to start with the emotion,
Mm.
because the emotion is generally attached to an event of something that happened that was traumatic in whatever way. And usually you're at a certain age when that happens. What isn't important is connecting so much with the age or the way that you looked, but it's about that feeling
Right.
and
Right.
really being a friend to that
Mhm.
feeling, almost as if you were the mother of that feeling, the mother of the one that was feeling that feeling. You're
Mm.
going to remother yourself and that experience and just show up, because all you've got to do is show up in love for that experience and not push it away and not make it wrong and not judge it and not need to know why it's there, but to just let it be there.
Mm.
And then your experience will deepen. And when you have an experience of, I noticed when I was doing the self-love practice, I noticed longer periods of time between my anxiety, between my bouts of depression, between my bouts of fear, right? So I noticed the more that I did it, I was leveling out,
Mm.
literally. And the longer that I went between like episodes,
Mhm.
um, I was holding space for myself longer. And then when the emotions would crest and rise again, and I would have a feeling, I would go back into that feeling. And then pretty soon after practicing that long enough, I got into just a real Zen place where I got real confident and I was able to really activate a lot of things in my life and get a lot of movement and start teaching. And so it was a process,
Mhm.
but I couldn't do anything that I do right now without a self-love practice.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's awesome. You are incredible. There's a few more things that I would love to wrap out with you about before we end this amazing conversation that I'm so grateful for having with you. Um, One thing that I love to ask my guests is if that you had a magic wand, and I definitely believe that you do. You probably have a few, and you can take that wand and give the masses one positive habit that would have a huge ripple effect in their life. What would that be?
Mm. Well, self-love comes to mind. I would have to say that's what it is. I mean, honestly, it sounds redundant, but I think that, I've been doing this work for a while. And of course, I read charts and I meet with a lot of really amazing people that are awakened, they're conscious, they're on the path of their own enlightenment and their own empowerment. And everyone suffers from self-doubt.
Mm,
Everyone. I mean, it's so crippling.
mhm.
And that self-doubt isn't something that you can talk yourself out of, and it isn't something that you can cheerlead your way out of. You've got to meet yourself in that feeling of self-doubt. You've got to feel into that. It's it, self-love. It sounds like, it's two words that seem really simple, but actually there's so much to it. Um, so I would say love the one who doubts. If I could just message the world, just love the one that's doubting, because we're all in doubt. And when we're pushing against those edges, we're all going to come up against doubt, because we're always going to transverse that territory we've never been. And this is the way we keep expanding and growing, is by not letting that doubt and that fear stop your progress.
Right.
And another thing I would say too, if I can maybe add to that, is
Mhm.
allow yourself to, no matter where you're at, even if you feel stuck and even if you feel really bound by an experience, know that even that is growth for you. You're always growing, even though you feel like you're in a place where you're got writer's block, or you don't feel movement, or you're not feeling excited, you're the one that is always in the creation. And so what I find most of the time when people are in experiences like that, it's just because they have a fixated thought that they're stuck.
Yeah.
Right? They have this
Yeah.
idea, well, I feel stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. And so they reinforce that.
Yes.
So you want to just allow your stuckness.
Yeah.
You want to celebrate your stuckness. You want to just relax into stuckness, right?
Like, here I am.
You just want to have a party in stuckness and just be like, okay, I'm stuck. So I'm just going to enjoy being stuck. And then the minute you enjoy being stuck, you're not stuck anymore because you've already shifted it.
Oh my God, I love you. Because yesterday I literally was like, fuck, I feel stuck with a business thing. And then I was like, whoa, because I'm so about my self-dialogue, like the words that I'm saying to myself, my stories, like I'm always watching myself from out here, and I'm like, do we want to, is this what we want to tell ourselves right now, that we're stuck? I mean, even though, sure, you're at a point right now where you're having a hard time making a decision. Is it this way or is it that way? So you're getting the feeling and the emotion of being stuck, but let's just like allow ourselves to be okay with this so that we can keep it moving, girl. And literally, like, that's literally what see, you had that magic wand on me yesterday.
I have a lot of people, especially air signs, that come to me with problems with like indecision. Indecision's an
Gemini.
energy of stuckness. Yeah, it's an energy of stuckness. The biggest clue for Gemini is that by the time you're in indecision, you boiled it down to two things. Either one of them are going to be good. Make a freaking decision, right? Because the decision, the movement's in the decision. Being in decision is also a decision.
It's so true. And you know what my muse says to me? You can't get it wrong.
No, exactly. You can't. The only way you get it wrong is, and this is a default, I think, for a lot of people that stay in indecision, because I used to really suffer from this too, that either decision is going to be the right decision. It doesn't matter. You've boiled it down to two decisions. Either decision is right. Make the decision. When you're trying to make a decision, you're trying to get movement. The movement is going to happen in the decision.
Right.
So make the decision. You can always correct course if you need to adjust. But that's how I think
that goes. And it brings us to the full circle of this piece. It's like saying you're not going to make a wrong decision no matter what happens, even if it's the ultimate, ideal scenario. You can recover. And in that recovery, in that peace, in that experience, there's something very valuable that becomes an asset to you. So it's all relevant. It's all important. But it's just so funny because I literally was there yesterday and so I kept it moving. But oh man, you were brilliant. Before I do my rapid fire words, which are just a few words that I share with you. And, the idea is for you to, when I say these words, whatever comes top of mind, top of heart, for you to come back to me with, and you do not need to be rapid. You can elaborate as deep as you would like. Before I go there, is there anything else that you would like to live in this beautiful conversation? Maybe something that you don't get asked about frequently, or something that's really robust within you right now that you just want to live in this talk?
Yeah, I would say that many people right now are getting ready to really step into their own empowerment. And any time that we're working with empowerment within ourselves, we're getting ready to empower others always. And you can get really stuck on a vision of perfection, of how it needs to look, how you've got to have all your ducks in a row, how you've got to have this ready and that ready in order to start. And I just want to say, don't limit yourself. Start where you are. Start with your sharing. Start with your vision. Start with writing down ideas. Start with your social media or whatever it is that you're going to connect to, because spirit and source is going to deliver you a more perfect package than you could even imagine in your head. So we have these limited perceptions of how it needs to look, and that a lot of times will stop us from actually taking action. Taking action is the most important thing. Even if it's just getting up in the morning when you don't want to get up in the morning, even if it's taking a shower when you haven't had one for 5 days because you've been in bed crying, right? It's really just about getting movement in your life and letting go of this idea or this illusion that it needs to look a certain way. Because this is what I notice the most, is that people get really stuck in that vision that if they don't have this ready and they don't have that ready, that they can't begin. And you can always begin. You can always begin, even just by talking and following your heart. I would say 95% of the people that I work with that are searching their purpose already have an idea of what it is. I'm just there for confirmation. So follow your heart. I feel like it's a huge like drama that we're all in, that we can't trust ourselves. Self-love helps with that, but trust what's in your heart. Trust what your desires of. Matt Kahn taught me a very important lesson, and he taught me that your desires are an aspect of your intuition. They're always guiding you into what the fullness of your reality is. And a lot of people have been taught by society or other things that it's dangerous to pursue your desires, that it's selfish, that it's not the path for you to take, that you need to be more self-contained and more cautious. And I say, fuck that.
Yes.
Follow your desires, because your desires are an aspect of your intuition. I've learned this. You have a desire for something in your heart that is guiding you. That is like another aspect of your intuition that's saying, go that direction.
Yes.
Because that's where your happiness is. That's where your joy is. You already have the desire. The energy's already there. Just lend your actions to that desire. And before you know it, you're going to get movement. It's just going to happen.
Right. That's so good. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because I that really needs to be on loudspeaker. Because it's not just about the things that, I think it's one part. Sure, you can really cultivate this experience from the external perspective of life, like, the home, the work, the finances, the partner. But when you really are operating from that intuitive, passionate, heart, driven space, it's the inner fulfillment that you are really going to. And in fact, that might even come first, before the other pieces fall in. But to me, that's like where it's anyways, right? So I love that you said that, because I do feel that it's the way.
It's the way.
I mean, I know
it's the way.
Yeah, it's the way.
Well,
Yeah,
it's how
I love it.
it's how I'm doing what I do now, because I spent most of my life in this desire to live the life that I'm living, and telling myself all the reasons why I couldn't. And the desire never lied to me, not once. It was always there. I was lying to me. My ego was lying to me by telling me that I couldn't make a living doing this, that I couldn't be supported. I couldn't have been farther from the truth. And actually, once I started really just believing in myself through self-love, I got momentum very quickly, as you probably too. I know you understand this. So follow your desire.
I do, and I'm still moving through it. Yeah, I love it. Oh God, you're so brilliant. Okay, Lynette, rapid fire words.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm too analytical for this, but yes.
Love it. Okay, the first word is love.
Peace. It's peace. The thing is that, and this is something that we had talked about earlier in our last session. Love exists within us. Any love that we've ever experienced with anyone else outside of us, our family, our lovers, our children, that love is ours. That love that we feel for others has always been ours. We've only been able to feel our love. We can have the expression of love projected at us from another person. We can feel a love and a touch and a hug and those sort of things. But the love that we actually feel for another person is our love. So when you realize that that love is available to you, it's peace. It just brings you peace because you know that you never are without it.
Ah, I love that. So good. Okay, the next word is fear.
Fear's a lie. It's a fucking liar. Fear is not evidence that you shouldn't do something. Fear is there to show you what's in the way. That's it. That's it. It's a lie. If fear never feels good in your body, right? Like we feel fear in our body, we have a response to it. Whenever you have a response like that, when you feel uncomfortable in your body, you know that you're telling yourself a lie. So when you don't feel good in your body, you want to check in. Okay, what was I just thinking?
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you're thinking a thought that is lying to yourself. And your body's trying to get your attention and saying, okay, that's a lie. That doesn't feel good. I'm telling you that that's a lie because it doesn't feel good. You always want to feel good, baby.
Yeah. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Next word is courage.
Courage. Wow. Courage. Courage is a word I know well. Courage. Oh boy. How do I explain courage? Courage to me, is fire. Courage is life. Courage is possibility. Courage is the future. Courage is that greatest love that you deeply want. Courage is vulnerability. Courage is belief in yourself. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know why you just activated the gladiator in me.
I know
good.
it does. That word does me too. It does. It does. Totally.
Good.
Yep.
Next word is challenge.
Challenge. Challenge is just your edge, right? Challenge is just your growth edge. That's all it is. It is a boundary that you haven't crossed yet. It is something that you haven't done. It's a new experience. This is where you get to activate courage, right? Because this is that inner warrior that says, I can do this. I can do this. Even if I do it poorly, I can still do this. Right? Because we can judge a lot of things. We can see a lot of things as things we do well, things we do poorly, whatever we decide to be in judgment about. Challenge is just a growth edge. It's an area where you get to expand. It's adventure. You get to go into a place you've never been. And what are you going to find when you get in there? Because you're likely going to find the gold, because that's how it is. There's always under a challenge, there's always gold there that is going to take you to the next level.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love it. Yes. Okay, just a couple more. Curiosity.
Curiosity. Wow, curiosity to me is creation. That's life. That's the God spirit within us. That is spirit expression through us of, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in a source, and I feel like we're each an extension of that source. And so for me, curiosity is, what's next? What else can I do? How else can I experience this life and this love and this body and this nature and this world and this relationship and this new thing? We're on such a growth edge right now as a collective, and leaning into things and going places where we've never been. And so we're really leaning more and more into that expression of being curious, being curious about how other people spend their days and their lives and what their experiences are about. And curiosity to me is leaving a part of yourself, like moving out of yourself into the unknown, and being willing to explore something that is new to you. It's an adventure to me. It's almost like that challenge word.
Yeah, curiosity is an adventure. I love it. So good. Two more words. Resilience.
Resilience. I have an image of it like a crystal sword. The energy of resilience to me, oh boy, that one almost makes me emotional.
Oh,
because resilience is holy. It's that ability to not give up, that ability to not surrender to the darkness within you and to love that part of you rather than to cave into it and to give up. And I was a giver upper. I was a total giver upper, and I would meet my growth edge and then I would quit because I kept seeing these experiences as evidence that I was on the wrong path, that I wasn't doing the right thing. So a lot of times I feel like people have challenges that come up and they don't persevere. Perseverance and resilience to me are sort of the same. It wasn't until I started persevering and telling myself that I could do it. I saw other people doing it. I knew I could do it. I had to show up for myself. I had to cheerlead for myself.
Yeah.
I had to put away the past and stop going back into the past mistakes, past hurts, past failures.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I was in many ways afraid of failure or afraid of like success more than I was even afraid of failure. So that resilience was hard fought for me.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. The warrior in me had to fight really hard for that because I had to find a different way to fight for myself. And then I did, and everything shifted once I was able to persevere and be resilient and not give up and pick myself up again and keep trying and not collapse back into myself. The reserves there, the wealth of self-love and success that I had for myself was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was so much better than where my mind went when I would collapse into fear and collapse into failure. I've been able to live so much farther than I would have been if I hadn't been resilient.
That was so good. That was cinematic for me. It's like the visual artist in me. I saw myself running in the deep sand that, I'm at mile 5 and tears are coming down because I'm watching this warrior like, you can fucking do it.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And to me, that crystal sword, it's like that sword of truth, it's transparent. It's there. It's unbreakable. It's within us. That's our core, man. You just got to connect with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Final word is excellence.
Excellence. Excellence is you showing up for yourself every day, however that looks. There's nothing to achieve beyond that. You take baby steps. You do it one day at a time. You love yourself through it. You congratulate, you acknowledge yourself for all the ways that you succeeded that day. That's excellence. And you do that every single day, and it's going to change your life.
Yeah, I love that. It resonates. It's a process for me. That's how I view it. Right. And so, you just said that so beautifully, Lynette. You are visceral, like you're incredible. And one thing that I do, before we close is, I know that you offer all kinds of things. And I really am telling everybody right now to go to your website, to check out your Instagram. It's incredible. Not only what you post, but what you offer. Something that I am going to talk to you about offline is I want to do a natal reading with you, because that's something that you really love doing. And if you want to just insert that really quick on what that really is and how you offer that, I would love that.
So the natal reading within every chart is a fingerprint of your soul energy. It's an energy reading. So it is determined at the moment of your birth, and you determine as a soul, you determine the moment of that birth, the location, your parents, all of that, because it's the energy that you choose to use in this lifetime. So within that signature, it unlocks your purpose. It unlocks the trajectory of your life. It unlocks your choice. And it also unlocks what I call the higher grids, the energy that you're building and working towards. Mm-hmm. And so I use that as a tool. And then I have a lot of coaching packages that extend from there. I work with my daughter as well, and we help coach others, much like you do, into empowerment and business and stepping into their own spiritual practices and being able to thrive in that kind of an experience.
Yeah.
But I find that, the natal readings are my signature readings because it's deep confirmation. Mm-hmm. For your life and for your purpose. And purpose, self-love always reveals our purpose. Purpose always reveals service, because that's really what it's about.
Sure.
So, and then I teach a lot about how to use, how to structure that, how to structure it with boundaries. I'm a spiritual strategist, and really what that means is that I help people to understand their own energy and how to use it, how to work through their blocks, how to work through their moments when they're climbing and growing and expanding, how to connect with their wisdom and knowledge and intuition. So it's a lot of different things that I do, but the natal readings are amazing.
Amazing. So it's so important to know how to channel and use your energy. That's really, really important, right? I can't wait to do that with you. I just want to say thank you so much for this time, for your energy, and also for being such a badass, powerful contributor to this life that we are living. You are the real thing. And it's just an honor to be connected to you. Thank you to my girl, Carrie. I love her so much for this. And I can't wait to share this with the world. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun when we did it the first time. It was even better the second time. So, I love the story. And it was such a great example of just how we just keep doing it. We just keep showing up, and there's no right or wrong. There's no, that we just love ourselves and we just show up again, and then it's even better. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you. So all of the information, your Instagram, everything will be in the show notes. But if you want to call it out, just to call it out, put it out in the universe.
Yeah. So you can find me at Oracle of Your Soul on Instagram. That's my handle. That's also my website, oracleofyoursoul.life. I do have various amounts of coaching packages, and I teach self-love. I have a free self-love workshop on the link in my bio and Instagram. And you can also access that through my website as well. So
perfect.
I'm always creating. I'm always getting stuff out there. I like to play with my community. I'm very engaged on social media on my Instagram. So if you want to get a taste of me, that's where you can go.
I love it. Yes. I love hanging out with you on Instagram, watching your collective readings. So, okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. You know what to do. Get channeled into this incredible woman, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.